Hello, Secret to Success podcasters. Thank you so much for joining us for another wonderful episode. Today, I have an amazing gentleman with us, Mr. Brandon Smith. How are you doing today?
I am doing really well, Deanna. Thank you for having me on the show.
Awesome. Thank you so much. So, Mr. Brandon, if you can please let our audience know exactly who you are and what it is that you do.
Yeah, so probably a good starting place. My handle is the workplace therapist, and I really make my living helping organizations become healthier and a little more free from dysfunction. So more practically speaking, I wear a few different hats in the world. So one of my hats is I'm an executive coach. So I work with leaders, men and women alike, across all different kinds of industries, all different kinds of functions, including entrepreneurs, on helping them just become better leaders. The second hat I wear is working with leadership teams, so helping them function better together and get through some of the bumpiness that happens when you get a group of people together and try and get them to work alongside each other. And my third hat is I've historically taught at multiple business schools all around areas around leadership communication. So I do a lot of workshops and teaching, both for companies but also in the education space to help improve people's leadership skills. And then I also have a podcast, The Workplace Therapist. So no matter what hat I wear, my entire purpose and passion in life is one singular thing, and that is to eliminate all workplace dysfunction everywhere forever. So it keeps me really super busy.
Okay, guys, there is nothing more personal than your health. So when it comes to finding the right nutrition supplements to meet your fitness goals, you need a personalized approach. Thankfully, now there's Gainful, the personalized nutrition system that's formulated for your body and goals. Gainful gives you peace of mind that your protein, hydration, and pre-workout supplements contain the finest ingredients specifically for you. Now, I've been on my weight release journey since the beginning of this year. And in the process of doing that, you pay more attention to what you're putting in your body, what you're doing to your body. And I love the Gainful products because it's specified specifically for me. It has a wonderful flavor. I'm one with a sweet tooth, so it works out for me. It doesn't have that grainy taste to it, that some powdery taste to it. And the one thing I love about it the most is I know that my body is different from everybody else's. So with Gainful, I know that I'm putting into my body what is specifically needed for my body. You know, my brother works out on a daily basis. I can't intake the same things he intakes. You know, I can't intake the same things that my mom would intake, and she's older than me and she's going through a process as well. So I truly love Gainful because it allows me to know, it gives me the peace of knowing that while I'm working out, while I'm going about my day-to-day activities, I know that what I'm putting in my body is healthy for me, and it tastes great. It doesn't steer me away. You know how some supplements taste so horrible where it's like, okay, I just can't do this even though I know I need to? Not Gainful, and I absolutely love it. You get started by taking the 5-minute Gainful quiz. Gainful considers your dietary needs, goals, and unique physiology to personalize your formula. And the one thing I love the most is Gainful delivers your supplements with no shipping charge every month. And you can cancel anytime or adapt your plan as needed, which is something else I absolutely love about Gainful, because as I transition, as I release the weight, as I change, as I work out more or work out less, as I become more active, or as I want to maintain, I can reach out and I can adapt my Gainful subscription to what my body has transitioned to, because 6 months from now, I'm not going to need the same things I need anymore. And that's one of the other things that I absolutely love about Gainful. So what I want you to do to get your $20 off from your personalized supplements, go to gainful.com/success. Again, that's Gainful, GAINFUL.com/success for $20 off. Gainful, your personalized nutrition made for your taste.
I was just going to say, you stay busy.
I do. Well, because we're people. We're a really messy bunch. So all you have to do is get a group of people together and say, here, go work together and achieve something. And inevitably, someone's going to throw elbows and bloody someone's nose. Someone's going to step on someone's toes. So my job is to really help smooth all that out. And then in way of background, I have a little bit of an eclectic background. So I have both a clinical degree, and I practiced in the clinical world for a number of years. And then I got an MBA to kind of balance that out, and then I started my own practice. So I'm also an entrepreneur, given all those things.
Awesome. Yay. So you have an amazing beginning. It says here that you went from not being able to order a pizza due to a debilitating stutter to becoming a master communicator. So can you please let our audience know that process and how it led you to where you are today?
Yeah, so I'm going to go all the way kind of back in time. So I'm the youngest of three boys. I had two older brothers who were adopted, and then my parents were told they couldn't have children, and then I came along, so surprise. And my brothers were 12 and 11 years older than me. And so growing up, I always tell people, being the youngest of three boys, I know what the inside of a dryer looks like. That's what big brothers do to little brothers. They stick them inside a dryer. I know what it's like to have somebody say, don't ask questions, just drink it. That's what big brothers do to little brothers. And so life was kind of fun. It was actually a lot of fun growing up with them. But I will say my oldest brother, he was in and out of trouble a lot. So he was in and out of jail, rehab centers, and it created a lot of kind of just dysfunction in my house. And when I was 10, he took his own life. And that was a really kind of traumatic experience for me and my family, so much so that right after that, I came down with this uncontrollable stutter. And that was when I was going into middle school. So every day before middle school, I would go in early in the morning, and I'd see my speech therapist, and I'd work on my P's and work on my T's and work on my B's. Those were all the letters that would trip me up that I could never quite get all the way through. And so then I would go on to the school day. And between all the trauma with my brother at home and the way kids are treated with stutters at school, I just decided, people were way too dysfunctional. I didn't really want to deal with them. So that was kind of my strategy, my coping strategy in high school and even in college. I would just kind of be like a wallflower, really distance myself from people. So I went off to college and I got a degree in communications, ironically enough. And when I graduated, I still didn't know what I wanted to do for a job. And like most good communication majors, I was unemployed at graduation. I couldn't find a job. And I ended up getting this job with this chain of retail stores. And it was a family-owned business, and my boss was the son-in-law of the owner. So the woman who started this business, there was 15 stores, her daughter married this guy, and he was my boss. And he greeted me at the door of the store where I was going to be the assistant manager, my boss did, on my first day of work. And he said, so excited to have you here, but before you get started, I want you to go in the back room, and waiting for you is the current assistant manager, but he doesn't know you're coming. So I want you to go back there and fire him, and then you get his job. And that was how my boss rolled. He would come in. He'd love to do everything you shouldn't do as a leader. He'd love surprise visits to try and catch people doing things they shouldn't be doing. He'd come into the store, and he'd say, I don't like what Sharon's wearing up front. Go fire her. I had to do more layoffs in the first 6 months of that job than any other time in my career, actually. And it was during that time that I kind of woke up and realized a couple things about my life. And I realized, first, work shouldn't have to suck. It should be a source of fulfillment and purpose for us. It shouldn't be anxiety and depression and stress. I mean, it is work. I know it's hard, but it should be more of the good stuff, not all the bad stuff. Second, we can't always choose the families that we're a part of, but we can choose a lot about the workplaces that we're part of. So I wanted to kind of equip people with more of those skills. And if my boss was any indication of the state of leadership in the world, we really need to make some changes. And then third, that was where my purpose was born, that I really wanted to cure workplace dysfunction, having no idea what I had signed up for. So that was really the kind of the spark of my journey. And now I do so much of my time, speaking and doing workshops and teaching others how to speak. And it's kind of ironic, given that I had this stutter that I just couldn't get over for so many years. And even today, when I do a lot of speaking, it's not always comfortable for me, but it's purposeful for me, because I feel like what I'm doing is really making a difference, and that kind of gives me the courage to pushed through situations that I probably wouldn't otherwise find comfortable.
Thank you. I thank you for doing what you're doing, because having been in the workplace before, that is one of the communication, having a comfortable work environment does a lot for a person who is already tired or already not wanting to be here. When you create that type of environment for them where they actually enjoy coming to work, you get a lot more work out of them, and not because, not just because you made it a good work environment, but because you made it a place where they're comfortable and they feel safe. If I have to come to work every morning not knowing what mood you're going to walk in with, or if you're not going to like what I'm wearing, I'm going to be kind of stressed throughout the entire day, wondering if I'm going to lose my job or not. And if that's weighing on me while I'm working, it's going to show up in my work. So I thank you for what you're doing, Brandon, because you're doing something that we all need. Because I've been in a work environment where when the head bosses are gone, workflow flows just like a river. But when they're there, it's like there's dams in the way. There's a beaver that just interrupted the stream. There's just so much.
So much stuff you just said right there that I just got to comment on, because you said some really awesome things. So first, there was a piece of research that was done about 5 years ago on studying the worst kind of boss to work for. That was the question the researchers took on. And so I would have thought, given my clinical background, they would have said the yelling and screaming angry boss was not number one. The ghosting boss you can never find, not number one. The micromanager boss, not number one. The worst boss is the one you just mentioned, and that is the highly inconsistent boss, or the unmedicated bipolar boss, the one that when you walk into work, you have no idea what you're going to get. That's the worst kind of boss to work for, because you can't manage to that. Like, if I got a micromanager boss, I know she's going to be a micromanager, so I can manage to that. But if they're inconsistent, I don't know that. Second thing I want to talk about real quick is this idea of emotional contagions at work. So since the early mid-'90s, there's been this growing body of research studying the contagiousness of emotions at work. I did a TED Talk on this a few years ago. And it is absolutely true. The emotions that we bring into the workplace are contagious. And so hopefully we're bringing in good stuff like joy and happiness and playfulness or calm. But energy, anxiety, or like stress, really contagious. Anxiety is one of the most contagious forms of emotion. So being aware of the emotion that we're bringing in makes a huge difference. And it's like a factor of two if we're the boss, because our emotional energy really sets the tone for the workplace. And the last thing I'd want to touch on is also something you mentioned around safety, psychological safety. We want to make sure we're creating psychologically safe environments. So Google did a piece of research around this, and what they found was their highest performing teams, what made them high performing wasn't that they had all A players. It wasn't that they had great project management skills. It was that they had psychological safety. And those teams had two main traits. They did what they call equal turn taking. So everyone talked and shared in meetings. And they had what they called high average social sensitivity. They seemed to actually care about each other on the team. And in order for that stuff to happen, the manager or leader has to create that environment. And it often starts with some level of vulnerability, like the manager has to make it safe to ask for help, or safe to share bad news, or safe to say, I was wrong, you were right, or share a brand new idea, a brainstorm. And when they do that well, then people feel more safer when they come to work, and they bring their whole self, which is really what we want when we come to work. So you made so many really great comments. I just wanted to add some of those little pieces to it, because I think you hit some highlights that are really important when we think about healthy work environments.
Thank you. And thank you for adding to that, because I know in some shape, form, or fashion, every single person has experienced the worst work environments and the best. And that's why being a part of Antonio's team is awesome, because the one thing that he did that I've never seen anybody do is he gave us the Gallup strength test, the assessment, and those worked perfectly because what he did was once he got our results, he shifted our positions within the companies in our strengths. So he already has us in a position that we're working in that we're comfortable with because it's who we are naturally. And then he taught us more skill on top of that, but he always makes, like, we have meetings every morning, which he now made public, and what he does is it's open for us to speak our mind, to give advice, and he always tells us, he'll ask us, so what do you think about this? And I laugh because I'm like, so what did you come up with? And he'll stop, he'll say, nope. I'm not asking for that. I'm not telling you anything I have in my mind until you tell me first, because what he's doing is he understands that once the boss man says this, that's what it is. And he understands that that's what it is within our culture. So he forces us to shift our culture to being ourselves and giving our ideas. And he always tells us, you're in the position you're in because of who you are. And I'm giving you the freedom to be who you are. So if you have an idea, express it. You know, I'm the one with the ideas. I'm the one with futuristic. I have a friend who she's hers is responsibility. You know, and so he puts us in our position, and having an environment like that where you're literally free to come to work and just be yourself makes it a more productive environment. So, I thank you for what you're doing, because when we understand that, work itself is already stressful for us. Some of us don't want to go. We want to stay at home with the kids, or it's just one of those days.
Right.
But to have that environment where it's like, okay, the kids will be okay. I actually feel like going to work today. Like, to have that thought, I actually feel like going to work today. That's when you know, okay, I've created a great work environment. So I want to thank you for that. I do. Thank you very much.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, thank you. Of course, absolutely. It's exciting to get to do what I do every day and try and make a little difference.
So that brings me to the next question, the hot sauce principle. I would love for you to break that down and explain to us what the hot sauce principle is and exactly how we use that in our work environments to make them better environments.
Yeah, so this is my newest book. It's called The Hot Sauce Principle, How to Live and Lead in a World Where Everything is Urgent All the Time. And this was the issue that all my clients have been facing, even still with COVID. People still face it, but it's definitely been true the last 3 or 4 or 5 years, where they were coming to me and they said, hey, Brandon, first, time is my most precious resource. It's not money, it's time. And everything is urgent all the time. And I don't know how to kind of deal with that. And so the analogy is really simple. Urgency, which is like an energy, is like hot sauce. And a little bit of it is a really good thing. You know, hot sauce, when we put hot sauce on our meal, it adds a little bit of flavor, it adds some spice, it adds some focus, and it makes it more interesting. And we might even want a little bit of relief. You know, we drink a little bit of water if it's too hot. But if we cover everything we get that comes out of the kitchen in hot sauce, the appetizers covered in hot sauce, the salads covered in hot sauce, the steaks covered in hot sauce, the brownies covered in hot sauce, the iced teas covered in hot sauce, you know, we're just overwhelmed and burned out. We can't. Not only can we not focus, you know, we're unable to really function in a productive way. So the analogy is really all about how do we control the amount of hot sauce we're putting on other people, like our teams, but also how do we push back when other people are trying to make everything in our life urgent all the time, whether that's customers or our bosses. So that's the whole idea of it, is how can we manage the hot sauce in life a little bit better so it's adding more interest and spice and not completely overwhelming.
All right. I like that. I really like that a lot, because I've walked into a work environment before where everyone's calm, and then the manager walks in and the manager is like at the highest peak of anxiety ever. So the entire work environment went from cool, calm, collected, flowing functionally to everyone is now on this spastic level. And when you say it that way, I'm like, okay, that makes sense. So the boss has walked in and just put hot sauce on everybody at this point. And it's like the level 5 hot sauce where it's so hot you can't taste your tongue, like your tongue goes numb.
Absolutely.
Okay. So because this, as you're breaking it down, I'm actually picturing all this in my head. It's like, wow. So let's say I am that manager. I'm the manager who comes in, and I'm spazzing out because the CEO is coming, and I'm nervous. So I walk in nervous. I make everyone else nervous. Everyone's at high levels of anxiety. Everything that could go wrong is possibly going wrong. What do I do as that manager to not bring that on my employees?
Okay, so let's start at a high level. The goal of a manager, so my personal belief around leadership, I subscribe to a lot of leadership philosophies, but I believe the first step for any leader is for her or him to drive clarity. Clarity around goals, clarity around roles, clarity around expectations. I mean, that's really our first job as a manager and leader, is to say, this is what you're supposed to do on the team. This is what success looks like. This is what we need to focus on. So it's a good reminder for us, because our job first is to drive clarity in situations like that. Second, we've got to make sure we don't kind of fall into that kind of kick the dog syndrome, where just because our boss is anxious, that then they push that down on us, which then we just push it down to our people, which push it down to somebody else. Like, that's not healthy. So we've got to really be thoughtful and kind of focus and prioritize around this. So I'll give you an idea, concept that came from one of my clients that I think is phenomenal. So this client of mine, he's an entrepreneur. He's got a 50-person business. He's an anxious guy as it is. So he's always kind of coming in and with everything being urgent all the time. And when I talk to his people, they said, we're almost near burnout because he's just so wound up. So I shared with him this idea of hot sauce as being urgency, and I gave him a little bottle of hot sauce. I carry around those little bottles of Tabasco that you might see at like a hotel. Have you ever been to a hotel buffet, those tiny little bottles? I buy those in bulk and give them out to people. So I gave him one of those.
That's awesome.
Well, he went out and he bought actually 3 bottles of hot sauce, 3 big bottles, and stuck them all on his desk. 1, 2, 3. And every time he gave out an initiative or project to one of his direct reports that was urgent, he handed them a bottle of hot sauce with that project. And they had to hold on to the bottle until the project was done, and then they would give him the bottle back. And what it did was 2 things. First, it reminded the direct report that this is urgent. But second, he only had 3 bottles he could hand out at a given time. So he couldn't make everything urgent all the time. If he ran out of bottles, he ran out of bottles. And I think that's the key. You really can't have, particularly today, the leaders that have been most successful, even going through COVID, have been the leaders that have no more than 3 to 5 priorities. Those are the things that are urgent and require attention. So those are the things that get hot sauce. Nothing else does. So as a leader, really be thoughtful about, okay, what are the 3 to 5 things I really need to focus my team on? Because remember, we're trying to drive clarity. We've got to keep them focused. And hot sauce is a way to keep them focused. So what are the 3 to 5 things that get hot sauce? And those are the 3 to 5. Nothing else gets it. And be really intentional about that. And if you have to go out and buy bottles of hot sauce to remind you, well, go buy some bottles of hot sauce and stick them on your desk. It will help.
Yeah, I can see how that would help too. Because I like that you said, and audience, I hope you guys are listening and taking notes. You say you should have no more than 3 to 5 main focus points. Is that each day? Each day you should have no more than 3 to 5. And if you only have those 3 to 5, it's not understand. I'm sorry. Go ahead.
No, I would go even broader than that. I would say 3 to 5 priorities for your team that are pretty consistent and a kind of week at a time. So experts in the crisis management space. So if like a team's going through a crisis or a company's going through a crisis, like a lot of companies have with COVID, they say a company can only focus on things 1 week at a time. So I would probably say kind of keep those 3 to 5 priorities at a week at a time, or maybe even more like 2 weeks or 3 weeks at a time. We all have our to-do list. I've got my to-do list sitting right next to me that have my things for the day that I need to work on. But they should all be moving towards those 3 to 5 priorities. And the key is no more than 3 to 5. Now, here's another important point to this. If you have your 3 to 5 priorities, your manager may have a different 3 to 5. And you may have a peer of your manager that has a different 3 to 5, and they're putting pressure on you. So part of the other challenge as a leader, whether we're inside a company and we've got other leaders or bosses, or we're an entrepreneur and we've got customers, we've got to make sure that we're managing other people's hot sauce that they're trying to put on us, because I'm sure they would like to make everything they're giving us urgent too. So we've got to make sure we learn how to push back on them properly and manage that. And that could be something, if you'd like to, we can talk about that.
I was actually just about to ask that question. How would you know how would you know what you need to prioritize as, okay, this needs to go out. I have 5 tasks in front of me. All 5 have hot sauce bottles. Which bottle is more important for me to get out first before I hit the next one? Like, how should I prioritize this collection of hot sauce I have right now?
Yeah, totally. Okay, so let's back up a minute. Workplace anxiety. So when we feel anxious at work, workplace anxiety comes from one of 2 places. Other than it can also come from our boss. Our boss can be anxious and make us anxious. But generally speaking, workplace anxiety comes from 2 places. Either we don't have enough information to solve a problem. So that's when we wake up in the middle of the night thinking about work, because we don't have enough kind of information to figure out how to solve this puzzle we've got put in front of us. Or we don't have enough time or resources to get something accomplished in the amount of time we've been given. So they say, hey, Deanna, we want you to get all this stuff done. You have 24 hours, and you don't have enough time or people or resources. So that can create anxiety for us too. In either case, the solution is a clarifying conversation. So what I love about this idea is from now on, everyone who's listening to this who has a boss who works inside a company right now, no longer view your manager as your manager for the rest of your life. I want you to view that person as your number one client, because they are. So now it unlocks all these conversations we would be having that are really client management conversations. So if your client asks you for all these things, you go back to them and say, well, Miss Client, I would love to do that for you, but unfortunately we don't have enough resources. So we have a couple options. One, we can prioritize all the things you have that you've given me, so I can help understand what your priorities are. We can manage off that. Or 2, you can give me more resources, and we can get more things done. But it's all about kind of understanding what their priorities are. So the last thing we want to do at work is guess. Guessing is very anxiety-producing, and inevitably we'll guess wrong, which causes problems. So one of the best things we can do is go back and clarify. So force our boss to prioritize or give us more resources. I had a student of mine years ago, and she'd gone to work at investment banking for an internship during the summer. And there was multiple managing directors inside this office. And they were notorious for all giving her projects. So one day, one of them came up with another project, and she said, and she was full. She had no more capacity to do any more work. She said, I am happy to do this project that you've given me. Unfortunately, I'm at capacity. I can't do any more work. So are you comfortable for me to go tell your managing director partner that I'm not going to do his project for you because you've brought me this project? I'm happy to do that if you're comfortable with that. And he looked at her and he said, never mind. And he walked away with the project. So forcing trade-offs is a really healthy way to approach this. So that would be my number one kind of piece of advice to everyone is when other people are putting urgency on you, view them all as clients, and then try and manage your clients' expectations. That will help you to manage the amount of hot sauce being put on your plate and your team's plate.
I like that. I like that a lot. So listeners, I hope you're taking notes. If you ever come across this while you're at work, and excuse me one second, Brendan, listeners, you don't have to say this passive aggressively. You don't have to say, just be calm, like, hey, I currently have this. So would you like for me to go tell them? Like, you don't have to be smart about it. Just politely say, hey, I have this one. I can do this, but I have to go tell such and such. So please, when communicating this, Don't communicate it with a smirk. Don't communicate it with attitude.
Yeah.
Just simply open line of communication. Just be honest with them, like, hey, I really don't mind doing this, but I have to do this right here for Ralph, and if I do this for you, I can't do Ralph. So I can go tell Ralph, hey, Ralph, I won't be able to get this done to you today because Robert asked me to do this, or you can go ahead and get this done, but you just watch how you say it, because that also feeds into your level of comfort at your job as well. And that brings me to another question, Brandon. How often is the employee responsible for their work environment and how they view it?
Well, I think we definitely play a role in that for certain. I think we can impact it by making sure we're thinking about the energy we're bringing into work every day, and we're trying to bring in positive energy. I would say that's very important right now. So if we're still living if we're looking in the kind of snapshot that is 2020 with COVID, it has created such an underlying level of anxiety for everyone that one of the best things we can do is bring in either one of these two energies, either calmness or kind of happiness/joy. Really, really important energies to kind of bring in. So I think we're responsible for that. The other part that we're responsible for is finding our own kind of answer to the workplace happiness formula at work. So workplace happiness is actually a really simple formula. It's three things. It's right job, so finding a job that fits your skills and strengths. So at the end of your point, like finding your strengths, and then hopefully you have a leader that can help support that and puts you in a role that leverages those strengths. The second one is finding the right culture, so a place that they share similar values to you. And the third one is the right boss, the leader who either shares your values or honors your values. If we have 3 out of 3, it's like a little rainbow pops up and follows us to work every day, follows us home every day. Most people might touch 3 out of 3, but usually we end up at 2 out of 3, which I'd call workplace satisfaction. That means 1 out of the 3 doesn't quite work perfect, but the other 2 work pretty well, and that's good. If we're 1 out of 3, that's workplace dissatisfaction, and we're looking for an exit plan. And if we've ever encountered 0 out of 3, which is the wrong job for us, the wrong culture, and the wrong boss, it's like a little piece of our soul dies each and every day. It's really painful. And in those cases, almost the best strategy is to just, leave as quickly as possible so you can recharge. But the part that we really own in this is understanding ourselves enough to find the right environments that we're going to thrive in. Because I can put you in one environment that will be perfect for you, and then I can stick you in another environment, and it's the wrong one for you. But it might be the right one for somebody else. So understanding our strengths, our values, and trying to find places that match to that, that's also something that we own as people.
All right. Thank you for that. Thank you very much. So, ladies and gentlemen, you hold some responsibility to your workplace enjoyment as well. I hope you wrote down the formula so you can work on your formula as well. You do have the choice. So please make the appropriate choice if you are still in the workforce and looking to stay in there and, retire, or if you're looking to retire early and become an entrepreneur. Remember those things for the employees that you hire.
Mm-hmm.
So thank you very much, Brandon, for stressing that to us, because that is something that we do need to understand. Even as entrepreneurs, you have to create the environment for your employees, for your team. And so it's important for entrepreneurs to understand and know that there is a formula, and you should help your employees be a part of that formula, but also teach that, teach your employees the formula. And if you know that they're in the wrong seat, don't force them to stay in the seat underperforming. Shift them to where you know that they'll perform, and that becomes part of knowing your team.
Yeah, and the one other thing I would also add to that is, as an entrepreneur, leader, when you're trying to create your culture and create your team, be really, really clear on what are the values that you're looking for. and really turn up the volume on those. You know, when you think about the best, highest performing cultures from a company perspective, they are not vanilla. They are very, very spicy. No pun intended. We're getting back to hot sauce. But they are really spicy. In other words, some people go there and they're like, I don't like this place. These people put the word cult in culture. And then other people go there and they go, oh my gosh, I just found home. So you want your culture to attract and repel. And it's only going to do that if it's really spicy, not if it's vanilla. So make it really, really clear, like the people who are going to be happiest here are going to embody these things. And if this is you, this could be home for you. And if this isn't you, you might want to find another place. So I think that's part of the job of any kind of leader, and particularly entrepreneur, as they're building, you know, a fast-moving startup environment, is that, you know, you're really clear on the kind of people that you're looking for and the culture you're trying to create. It's one of the few things that only a leader can author. And, you know, strategy and priorities is one of them, but the other one is culture. So we've got to really own that if we're going to be truly, whether we're leading in a company or building our own, we've got to own that.
Definitely. And so that brings me to the next question, Brandon. What is so you've said it, you've already said it a few times. What is the one thing that you would recommend for every entrepreneur to do, or not just entrepreneurs, but those who are still in the workforce, they're or shifting into entrepreneurship, or they're currently looking for a job? What is the one thing that one piece of advice that you can give them to assist them to make sure that this next job is not like the last one?
Really good question. And I have a different answer for people who want to become entrepreneurs than I do for people who are looking for jobs.
Awesome.
So I'm going to give you the answer for entrepreneurs first.
Okay.
So if and I'm going to give it by painting this kind of picture. So there are three really rare jewels in life that any successful entrepreneur is going to need to have in her pocket. And you have to have all three. You can't have just 2 out of 3. It doesn't work this way. You got to have all three. The first one would be some sense of purpose. So some North Star, like, why are you doing this? What's your why? And ideally, your business is tied to that. So what's the need in the world you're trying to meet? Like, are you trying to build a business because you see a need with a particular group of customers that aren't getting a particular need met, and your heart goes out to them? You know, what is that purpose, that North Star? For me, it's curing workplace dysfunction. But you want to have that North Star. So you can almost imagine, you know, you're kind of lost in the woods in the middle of the night and it's dark. You need that North Star to look up to see where you're going. The second thing you need is courage. Okay, you're going to have to take that first step. That's why all the people listening right now that are still in a job, this is one of them. It's courage. They're afraid to take that first step. They're trying to calculate it just perfectly, and it's never going to be perfect. It's like having kids. The timing is never right. You never know enough. You just have to figure it out as you go along. So it's the same kind of idea. So courage to take that first step. You're in the middle of the night. You can't see where you are, and you can't see your feet, but you're going to take that first step. That's the second rare jewel. The third rare jewel is faith. And faith can be your spiritual faith, but faith can also just be knowing it's going to work out. Faith is taking the second step and the third step and the fourth step when you're in the woods and you can't see where you're going, but you're going to keep walking towards that North Star. Faith begins when data ends. And as an entrepreneur, you're never going to have enough data. There's going to be a lot of gut instinct and just you got to keep moving forward. And so it's those three things are really important if you're going to go out and start something on your own. You got to have purpose, you got to have courage, and you got to have faith. And if you're missing one of those, it'll cause issues. So if you don't have purpose, what will happen is you'll have courage and faith. You'll walk a little bit down a path, but then something else becomes shiny, and you go that path. Then something else becomes shiny, and you go down another path. If you have purpose and faith but no courage, you're not even going to take the first step. You're just still going to stand there frozen in the woods. And if you have purpose and courage but no faith, it's like a dance move. You'll take a few steps forward, and then you'll get scared, and you'll move back into the starting position. And then a few steps forward, and then back in the starting position. You'll keep going forward and backwards, forward and backwards. So you need all three of those to kind of keep you moving forward. So that would be my kind of piece of advice for anyone thinking about kind of going down the entrepreneurial path. Really try and work on those three things. Get a clear sense of purpose, really push yourself to take some courageous, bold steps, and then faith. Making sure that you don't get too scared early. It's for a lot of entrepreneurs, it's about getting that flywheel running. I know for me, it took me several years until my business really started picking up momentum, where I didn't worry about revenue on January 1st. But there was many times I turned to my wife and said, "We have $5 in the bank account. Please do not take any money out. We have $5." And those are some of those early conversations of an entrepreneur. You have to be okay with that.
Yeah.
But fortunately, that's not what it is today, and it's more about kind of pushing through those. So long answer, but I think a really important one for people looking to be entrepreneurs.
Well, thank you. Thank you very much. That was a wonderful answer for those looking to be entrepreneurs, because I've experienced all three of those. I've experienced having the courage and the faith but no purpose, and then I was a shiny, thingy person. Oh, look at that over there. Let me go do this. Oh, look at that over there. Look at that. And then once I had purpose, it was, okay, so I just kind of stood there because I'm like, okay, that's a big purpose. I don't know if I have the courage to actually move forward. But I have the faith that when I do move, eventually it'll work, or you have the purpose and the courage, but not the faith. It's like, man, look, I can do this. I know what my purpose is, but I don't have the faith that it's actually going to come out the way, So I've literally been in all three categories. And if you're right, you're absolutely right, Brenda. If you do not have all three in place, you will go in a consistent cycle of incompletion for a long time before it's like, okay, look, I'm tired of this. Let me just put all three of these together and just do it. I'm just going to do it. I'm not going to sit here and think about it. I'm not going to overthink it. I'm just going to do this and that. And like you said, once you just do it, it just move. So thank you. Yeah. Entrepreneurs, I hope you were taking notes.
To be an entrepreneur is to be vulnerable. It is to be vulnerable, and you have to learn to be comfortable with vulnerability. So let me say that one more time. You have to learn to be comfortable with vulnerability, and you have to be able to overcome fear. And that's why those three jewels in your pocket are really important, because they'll keep you strong. Purpose, courage, and faith will keep you strong and keep you kind of weathering some tough storms, because no one likes to be vulnerable. As people, we don't like to do that, but it's learning to get comfortable with that. That's why there's the mantra of fail fast in most startups, all about getting comfortable with vulnerability. And the entrepreneurs that are the most successful, they develop resilience, and they recognize that, as a good mentor of mine would say, I'm enough in my limitedness. I'm not perfect, but I'm enough. I can figure this out. But it's all about getting that place.
Those are some powerful words. I'm enough in my limits. Oh, wow.
Yeah.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much. So, Brendan, how can our audience reach out to you? Our entrepreneurs, if they realize, okay, look, my environment isn't the greatest. I need Brandon over here ASAP.
Yeah.
How can they reach out to you?
So I'm a really easy guy to find. If you just Google the workplace therapist, there's only one. That's me. So really easy to find. You can find me on theworkplacetherapist.com. That's an easy way to connect with me. Of course, I'm active on LinkedIn, Twitter, Facebook, all those, Instagram, all those social media outlets, so we can connect that way. And then my firm, where I work with both entrepreneurs and small businesses, medium businesses, large businesses, nonprofits, that is called The Worksmiths, just like blacksmiths, The Worksmiths. So theworksmiths.com. And that's where I help kind of make workplaces more effective and healthier. But you can also even link over to that from the Workplace Therapist. So I would tell everyone listening, if you wanted to learn more about me or just get connected, the Workplace Therapist is a good starting place.
Awesome. So, and ladies and gentlemen, we will definitely have all of that in the show notes as well. Brandon, I want to thank you so much for coming out and spending time with us today and dropping these amazing nuggets for our audience, because that communication in the workplace and having that work environment that everyone loves to go to is very important when it comes to the success of any business and just the overall success of a person's personal growth as well. So I thank you so much for what you do and what you are continuing to do. I thank you for your purpose as well. And do you have any final words for our audience today?
Maybe it is just going back to one word I've used a lot today, and that's the word clarity. Mm-hmm. I love the word clarity because I think clarity can really make things healthy for us. So clarity can be towards some of the things we just talked about, clarity around your purpose, and have a clarity around courage and faith on where you want to go with your life. But clarity can also be around expectations you have for your team and for others, and making that very clear so you're putting hot sauce on the right things. So clarity is the first step to setting ultimately healthy boundaries and having the life that you want. So maybe that's kind of the challenge for everyone today listening is start with that word. Start with the word clarity. What are you clear on, and what could you get clearer on?
Thank you. Thank you very much. And clarity is yes, thank you very much.
My pleasure.
Personal experience. I have learned clarity is extremely important. So, Brandon, thank you so much for joining us today for the Secret to Success podcast. Ladies and gentlemen, thank you all for listening. You can find all of the contact information that Brandon mentioned in the show notes, so you can be able to reach out to him. Definitely follow his blog and his podcast. Remember to hit subscribe, share, like, hit the bell so you can get the notifications as well. Thank you all so much for joining us today, and we hope you have an amazing day today.